Welcome back, and if you're someone who's been keeping a close eye on XRP, then trust me, you're going to want to hear everything I'm about to tell you. Because right now, in June 2026, XRP is sitting at one of the most interesting crossroads in its entire history. There's legal drama finally resolved, institutional money flooding in, government bills moving forward, and brand new technology being built on the XRP Ledger every single week. So let's get into it, everything you need to know about XRP right now, broken down clearly and completely. Let's start from the very beginning, because if you want to understand where XRP is today, you have to understand the storm it survived. Back in December 2020, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filed a lawsuit against Ripple Labs, claiming that XRP was being sold as an unregistered security. That one lawsuit sent shockwaves through the entire crypto world. Exchanges started delisting XRP left and right, investors panicked, and for years, literally years, XRP was stuck under this enormous legal cloud that made institutions too scared to touch it. But then things started to change. In 2023, a court ruled that XRP traded on public exchanges does not constitute a securities transaction. That was a massive partial victory for Ripple. And then in 2025, after 5 long years of fighting, the SEC finally dropped its appeal. Ripple settled for just $50 million, which is 96% less than what regulators had originally demanded. Both Ripple's executives were cleared of all personal charges. And with that, one of the longest and most consequential legal battles in crypto history was finally over. Now here is why that matters so much. The moment that lawsuit ended, it didn't just help Ripple, it sent a clear signal to every institution on Wall Street that XRP is a legitimate, compliant asset. And institutions did not waste any time acting on that signal. Within months of the lawsuit wrapping up, major asset managers started filing for XRP exchange-traded funds. And in late 2025, the SEC approved the very first spot XRP ETFs products from companies like Bitwise, 21 Shares, Franklin Templeton, and Canary Capital. Now, some of you might be wondering what exactly is a spot ETF and why does it matter for XRP? A spot XRP ETF is a fund that actually holds real XRP, and it trades on traditional stock exchanges. That means pension funds, retirement accounts, wealth managers, and big institutions can now get exposure to XRP without ever having to deal with a crypto wallet or a private key. The door to traditional finance just got kicked wide open for XRP, and the numbers that followed were nothing short of stunning. In their very first month of trading, US spot XRP ETFs did not record a single net outflow day, not one. By December 16, 2025, cumulative inflows had already crossed $1 billion, making XRP the fastest digital asset ever to reach that milestone after its ETF launch. By early March 2026, those inflows had grown to over $1.5 billion, with 5 ETFs now trading and holding over 769 million XRP tokens in custody. And then Goldman Sachs, one of the most powerful banks in the world, disclosed a position of $153.8 million in XRP ETFs. Let that sink in. Goldman Sachs is now directly invested in XRP. The institutional era for XRP is not coming, it has already begun. Now let's talk about the regulatory landscape, because this is absolutely critical to understanding XRP's future. Right now in the United States, there is a bill moving through Congress called the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, also known as the Clarity Act. This is landmark legislation that would permanently classify XRP as a digital commodity under federal law. Why is that important? Because a commodity classification means XRP would be regulated by the CFTC, not the SEC, giving it a much cleaner and more favorable legal framework. On May 14, 2026, the Senate Banking Committee voted to advance the Clarity Act with a bipartisan vote of 15-9. The White House has reportedly set a target of July 4, 2026, Independence Day, to sign this bill into law. Analysts across the board are calling this the single biggest remaining price catalyst for XRP. Standard Chartered, for example, is forecasting XRP at $2.8 by the end of 2026 in their base case and $8 in their bullish scenario if the Clarity Act passes and ETF inflows reach $10 billion. 7 XRP ETFs have already pulled in over $1.29 billion in net inflows, and JPMorgan is forecasting that number could reach for $8.4 billion in the first year if institutional demand holds. So the regulatory and institutional momentum behind XRP right now is unlike anything we've seen before. Now let's zoom in on the price action, because XRP's chart in 2026 has been a wild ride. XRP entered this year trading around $2.1, which already represented significant growth from where it was just a year prior. In May 2026, the token shot up to a peak of $2.72 before pulling back sharply. And as of right now in June 2026, XRP is consolidating in the range of roughly $1.15 to $1.35. That's about a 12% gain year to date, but the swings along the way have been dramatic. XPRP is actually trading below its 50-day moving average and its 200-day moving average, which technically signals short-term weakness. But here's the thing, technical weakness combined with strong fundamentals is exactly what many analysts call an accumulation opportunity. The daily trading volume for XPRP has averaged around $2.8 billion through the second quarter of 2026, up significantly from the $1.5 billion average in late 2025. And much of that volume is coming from Asian markets, particularly South Korea and Japan, where Ripple's payment corridor partnerships have driven serious retail interest. So the market is active, the liquidity is deep, and the big players are watching very closely. Now let's talk about what might be the most exciting part of XRP's story right now, the real-world use cases and partnerships that are building right in front of our eyes. Let's start with something huge: Ripple and Mastercard. In June 2026, Ripple was confirmed as one of over 30 initial partners in Mastercard's brand new Agent Pay for Machines framework, also known as AP4M. This is a system designed to enable AI-driven, machine-to-machine payments. Think about that, we're talking about AI agents that can autonomously make and receive payments using XRP and RLUSD on the XRP Ledger. Ripple's role in this network is to provide blockchain settlement, meaning the XRP Ledger becomes the backbone for these next-generation AI-powered transactions. And separately, Mastercard has also partnered with Ripple to pilot the settlement of actual credit card transactions using RLUSD, Ripple's own stablecoin, on the XRP Ledger. WebBank, a regulated U.S. bank, will be testing the settlement of Mastercard transactions using RLUSD on XRP. This is one of the first times in history that a regulated bank is settling traditional card payments using a regulated stablecoin on a public blockchain. If this pilot succeeds, it could fundamentally change the plumbing of how everyday card transactions are settled around the world, and we haven't even talked about JPMorgan yet. Ripple closed a tokenized Treasury pilot with JPMorgan, Mastercard, and Ondo Finance on the XRP Ledger earlier in 2026. Tokenized treasuries, meaning real-world government bonds brought onto the blockchain, are one of the hottest trends in institutional finance right now, and XRP Ledger is positioning itself right at the center of that revolution. Now let's talk about RLUSD, because this is a product that is quietly becoming one of the most important pieces of Ripple's entire strategy. RLUSD is Ripple's dollar-backed stablecoin, and it launched in December 2024 under New York's trust charter, fully backed by cash and cash equivalents. What makes RLUSD unique is that it operates under dual federal and state oversight from both the OCC and the New York Department of Financial Services. No other major stablecoin issuer in the world currently holds that kind of regulatory structure. And RLUSD is growing fast. It has already surpassed $1.3 billion in circulating market cap, and it's been expanding to Ethereum Layer 2 networks as well. Ripple has also integrated Bitso's Mexican peso-backed stablecoin, MEXBN, into its enterprise payments network, meaning RLUSD and MEXBN will work together to support cross-border payments between the United States and Mexico. That's a massive remittance corridor. We're talking about one of the largest in the world. And with RLUSD handling the stablecoin side and XRP handling settlement, Ripple is building a full-stack payment solution that covers both speed and stability. Now, one exciting new development that just dropped on June 11, 2026, Ripple launched the XRPL AI Starter Kit. This is a brand new developer toolkit that enables autonomous AI agents to transact using XRP and RLUSD on the XRP Ledger. It includes support for the X402 payment protocol, which lets AI applications like Claude, Cursor, and other agent frameworks send and receive payments with minimal human involvement. Ripple is literally positioning the XRP Ledger as the payment layer for the coming AI economy, while USDC is currently dominating the AI payment space with over 120 million cumulative transactions. XRP is making its move into this space with serious infrastructure backing. This is a long-term play, and it's one of the most interesting technological bets Ripple has ever made. Now let's talk about the XRP Ledger itself, because the underlying technology has been getting some major upgrades. In May 2026, XRPL released version 3.1.3, which patched critical bugs in ENFs, vaults, and the lending protocol, making the network more reliable for institutional use. Specifically, the update fixed issues like expired ENFT offers lingering on the ledger and corrected how vault withdrawals interact with trust line limits. These might sound like technical details, but for enterprises that want to build serious financial products on XRPL, this kind of stability and precision is everything, and developers have already teased that version 3.2.0 is in development, focused on further hardening the network's infrastructure with the help of AI-assisted testing. The XRP Ledger has now processed over 4 billion total transactions in its history, and there are currently $474 million worth of real-world assets tokenized on the chain. That's not a test number, that's real money, real assets, sitting on the XRP Ledger right now. Over 300 banks and financial institutions are using Ripple's network to settle international payments, a process that used to take 3 to 5 days through SWIFT and now takes seconds. Ripple has also received conditional approval from the U.S. Office of the Comptroller of the Currency for a Ripple National Trust Bank charter. And the company has applied for a Federal Reserve Master account which, if granted, would allow Ripple to interact directly with the Federal Reserve's payment systems. That would be a historic first for any crypto-native company, and it would cement Ripple's position not just as a tech company but as a regulated financial institution. Now let's take a balanced look at the risks, because no investment update is honest without discussing the other side. The first concern that analysts raise is the Clarity Act timing. If the bill gets delayed beyond mid-2026, XRP loses its biggest near-term catalyst. Markets move on expectations, and any sign that the bill is stalling could put short-term pressure on the price. Second concern, Ripple's own stablecoin RLUSD could actually reduce demand for XRP itself. Here's the argument. Banks and institutions can use Ripple's payment network without needing to hold large amounts of XRP. If RLUSD handles most of the liquidity and settlement, the utility case for XRP as a bridge currency weakens. It's a legitimate concern, and Ripple will need to prove that XRP remains indispensable within its own ecosystem. Third, competition is fierce. XRP is not operating in a vacuum. JPMorgan has JPM Coin, there's USDC, central bank digital currencies being rolled out around the world, and even an upgraded version of SWIFT is fighting for relevance. XRP may have first-mover advantages and strong partnerships, but the race for global payment dominance is far from over. And fourth, ZERP's monthly escrow unlocks. Every month, Ripple releases up to 1 billion XRP from escrow into the market. Historically, a large portion of that is locked, but if those unlocks consistently hit the open market, they create supply pressure that can weigh on the price. So those are the risks, and they're real, not hypothetical. But let's now bring everything together and talk about the bigger picture, because that's what ZERP's story is really about. XRP entered 2026 with more going for it than almost any other crypto asset: a resolved lawsuit, approved ETFs, institutional backing from Goldman Sachs and JPMorgan, a functioning stablecoin, hundreds of banking partnerships, and a major piece of legislation potentially cementing its legal status forever. The XRP Ledger is being used by AI agents, being tested by Mastercard, being built on by developers around the world. Ripple is not just a crypto company anymore, it's positioning itself as a regulated, institutional-grade financial infrastructure provider. And XRP is the native asset that powers all of it. Price targets from credible analysts range from 2.8 on the conservative end all the way to $8 or higher if major catalysts align. The Clarity Act passing, ETF inflows hitting $10 billion, and the Federal Reserve Master account approval, any one of those events alone could be a major price mover. All three together? That would redefine ZERP's position in the global financial system. Now, this channel always says the same thing at the end of every video, and I'll say it again here. None of this is financial advice. Crypto is volatile, unpredictable, and XRP has already shown this year that it can drop 60% from its highs even while the fundamental story gets better. Do your own research, understand your own risk tolerance, and never invest more than you can afford to lose. But if you're someone who believes in the long-term vision of a faster, cheaper, borderless global payment system, then ZERP's story in 2026 is one you cannot afford to ignore. The legal battle is won, the institutions are in, the technology is advancing, the legislation is moving, and the XRP Ledger is being built on in ways that nobody was even talking about just 2 years ago. Whether XRP reaches $2, $5, or beyond, the foundation being laid right now is the strongest it has ever been. If you found this update helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another XRP update. Drop a comment below and let me know, are you bullish on XRP for the rest of 2026? I'll see you in the next one.